What is up, guys? So I just watched the first two Godfather movies over the weekend, and I'm going to just kind of give my quick thoughts on them. It's not going to be super in depth. It's going to be very candid, very like first impression. I just finished the second one last night. And I'm also going to be, at the time of recording this, doing a live stream on my buddy Rob Fishbeck's channel. So if you're watching this after the fact, go and check that out. I'm sure that was a lot of fun. So I'll go even more in depth there and have other people to bounce off of. But I feel like I had to make my own video about them because, you know, these are like two of the most highly praised, most popular, most talked about movies of all time. And before we get into this, I have to preface this by saying I have not had the years to sit with these movies like most people have. I did not watch these as a kid. This is very, very fresh. I just watched them a couple days ago and yesterday, so some of my takes could certainly change throughout the years if I rewatch them and think about some things a little bit more and hear some more perspectives. So keep all of that in mind before I get into this, because this is just some very, very candid, fresh initial thoughts. So, first thing I'm going to do is go through all the things that were great about both movies, and of course, the performances is the first thing that comes to mind. Al Pacino is the through line in both movies that is absolutely phenomenal. Marlon Brando brings a great screen presence to the first movie, and De Niro is, I would say, good in the second one. I much prefer Brando, and I'll get more into that in a second when I talk about why I actually like the first one quite a bit more. But Talia Shire was really good, and of course James Caan in the first one, and Robert Duvall in both. These guys are so young, by the way, they're barely even recognizable to me. Like, this is not the Al Pacino, the Robert Duvall, the James Caan that I know. I mean, they're like 30 or something in that. They look like completely different people to me, so it was kind of cool. They almost look like different actors entirely. Like, James Caan looks kind of like Ben Affleck, and Al Pacino kind of looks like Oscar Isaac. So, yeah, barely recognizable to me from most of the stuff that I know them from. I know Pacino did a lot of stuff in the 70s, so I'm going to have to watch some of those and catch up on them, but I have hardly seen any of those. Also, obviously, I didn't watch the third one. Because of its reputation, I bought the first two on 4K like 2 years ago on Black Friday. Did not buy the third, again, because of the reputation. And I will get around to that at some point, but I just really wanted to give my thoughts on the first two, which is also what the live stream I do tonight with my buddies will be about. But, of course, the direction is impeccable. Francis Ford Coppola was in his prime when he made these movies. And although I actually also really love The Outsiders, maybe even more than these, but I'm not sure. We'll get into that. And of course, the score is amazing. The main Godfather theme is like one of the most recognizable themes when it comes to movies. So obviously, I knew that before going in. And speaking of knowing that, there were a lot of things that I already knew. I just didn't know exactly how they would play out and when they would happen. I think that both movies have really good storytelling. The first one, you know, telling the story of Michael going from the good seed who doesn't want to be involved at all, then because of a business deal gone bad, and then his dad getting shot and his brother getting, obviously spoilers for both these movies, but I mean, they've been out 50 years. His brother getting killed brings him into it, and then by the end fully embraces his role as the new Don, the new head of the family. And then the second one, which is kind of about his fall simultaneously with the rise of his father, who is played in the past by Robert De Niro. And it's much more subtle, Pacino, in these two movies. We get a little bit of yelling in there. Like, I really love I know a lot of people are bothered by the yelling Pacino. I kind of like it. I kind of like 90s yelling Pacino, like from Heat and The Insider and stuff. Get a little bit of that here, kind of like the precursor, but for the most part, he's pretty subdued, and he's really, really damn good. I alluded to before the fact that I prefer the first over the second one, and there are a couple different reasons for that. The first one is that, and this is the point that I already kind of started to make, is that I much prefer Marlon Brando to Robert De Niro as Vito Corleone. It's not even remotely close. I mean, Brando just brings this screen presence and gravitas and magnetism that De Niro did not bring for me. In fact, I didn't really connect with De Niro much at all. And maybe part of that is that we just didn't get enough of him. I expected a larger section of the movie to be about the past, and I thought it was going to be like 50-50 past and present. It was definitely not. The past was a fairly small section of the movie, and of course it has its moments, like when he kills Fanucci, I think is his name, and then when he kills the guy that killed his family. That was very satisfying. Again, didn't do it. I was a little bit cold, a little bit at arm's length from De Niro as opposed to Brando, who I just get immediately invested in right away. I thought there was much more layers to his version. This is a character who's been around a while. He's kind of on his way out, doesn't really want to do this anymore. He's ruthless, but also kind of kind, and he cares very much about his family. And, of course, now I know where a lot of these famous lines come from, such as, "Look how they massacred my boy," and "Leave the gun, take the cannoli." And another reason I prefer the first is I think it's more quotable. I really can only think of one quote in the second one. I knew it was you, Fredo. But the first one has quite a bit more. So that's another reason why I prefer it. Brando, of course, I just like so much better than De Niro. And just in general, Brando brought a screen presence to the first one that I thought was sorely missing from the second one. Another thing is that I just like the pacing and the plot of the first one and Michael's arc in the first one. I think the first one is a little tighter, a little better paced for what I prefer with my pacing in movies, a little more focused. And Michael's arc is one that I just gravitate to a lot more in the first one. When you take the good seed who slowly realizes that he was made for this and slowly embraces his role as the new Don of the family by the end of the movie, that is a much more compelling arc to me than his arc in the second one, which is basically just bad man gets worse. So those are kind of the main reasons I prefer the first one. The first one just is more entertaining to me. I imagine I'll go back to the first one quite a bit more. I'm not going to go back to either one of these very often, but the second, I don't really see myself going back to really at all. Because while it does have great storytelling and great acting, I didn't think the pacing was very good. And I hesitate to use the word boring, but I did kind of feel that way. And again, this is just first impressions. I was not super invested in the second one like I was for the first one, basically all the way through. I mean, the first one has like maybe one section that I feel like could have been removed, but otherwise it was pretty compelling all the way through and definitely has some really intense moments, such as I think maybe my favorite scene in both movies is when Michael kills Sollozzo and is it Captain or Sergeant? Yeah, Captain McCluskey. That was incredibly intense because I didn't actually know if he was going to do it. So, because again, I haven't seen these movies. That was not something that was spoiled for me. And I'm like, oh, is he going to chicken out? And then he does it. I'm like, whoa, that was cool. And then, of course, it does slow down a little bit from there, but, picks back up towards the end. And he takes everyone out after Sonny dies, which I knew Sonny was going to die. That was something that was spoiled for me. That's kind of out there in the pop culture zeitgeist, kind of unavoidable. I didn't know exactly how or when, but, once it felt weird that Carla's husband, no, is her name? Oh, shoot. Carlo is the husband. No, it's not. Damn it. I'm sorry. Hold on. You know what? This is just a real-time moment right here. So, The Godfather. It is, Connie. Okay, right. I knew it was a C. When Carlo was beating her again, I'm like, this seems a little bit like a setup. And Sonny is such a hothead that he leaves without his bodyguards. And then, of course, you get the car in front of him, holding him up, and you're like, fuck, he's done. Yep, and then, of course, the "Look how they massacred my boy" line, which is really, really good. So, I don't have a ton more specific things to say. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot more to say in that live stream that I do tonight. I'm not going to upload this until after that because I'm going to drop my initial thoughts on those two movies. I have not done Letterboxd reviews because I kind of want to keep it a secret because my friends have made it such a big deal that I'm finally watching these for the first time. They've wanted me to for many, many months now, and they've been planning this video for a long time. So saving my initial thoughts for then. But I would say the first one I would probably give an 8 out of 10. I think it's really good. I would rewatch it, not as often as just to make a comparison as far as crime, mobster movies go. The Departed is my favorite. It is the most my speed, the most on my wavelength because it has the really good writing, the really good characters, but also has a very fast-moving plot and very urgent plot that kind of gives it a nice through line and keeps me compelled and captivated the entire time, which is why I prefer that to Goodfellas. I would put Godfather 1 probably a little ahead of Goodfellas, but definitely behind The Departed. Godfather 2, I think I would give more of a 7 out of 10. Again, there are a lot of aspects that I appreciate about it between the themes and the acting and the storytelling, but it's just not told in a way that I would want to come back to very often. And the pacing was a bit off-putting to me, and I was much more invested in the character arc and story of the first movie. So for that reason, yeah, the second one I like significantly less, which is a bit surprising for me because people talk up the second one like it's... I feel like most people prefer the second one, or either that or they have them neck and neck. So I was pretty surprised that I vastly preferred the first one. Again, for Brando's presence, which was sorely missed in the second one, for the tighter pacing, the more focused story, and the better Michael Corleone arc. So that pretty much sums up in, as concise thoughts as possible. I might do another video about these movies at some point. Maybe I'll watch them again at some point and then kind of do an updated thoughts. But because these movies are so big and I had not seen them prior to a few days ago, I thought it would be interesting and fun to just kind of drop my initial thoughts on those two movies. I'm going to watch the third one at some point, and then that will determine where I have the trilogy ranked as far as my all-time favorite trilogies. It's not going to be ahead of the Dark Knight trilogy, I can guarantee you that. I'm almost positive it won't be ahead of the new Planet of the Apes trilogy with Rise, Dawn, and War. And probably not ahead of the Back to the Future trilogy, just off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's going to be in my top 10 somewhere. So I really respect these movies. I really appreciate them, and I acknowledge their impact on film, and I understand why people love them so much. I really, really enjoyed the first one. Second one, not quite as much. So I'm just not quite on the same level as most people seem to be with these two movies. But again, that could change over time. That is very possible. These are just my initial thoughts. So with all that being said, what are your guys' thoughts on the Godfather movies, specifically part 1 and 2, but also if you want to drop your thoughts on part 3 without any spoilers, because I haven't seen it yet, or if you do drop spoilers, put a spoiler warning, put those comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Likes are super important for helping me grow my channel and push my videos out to more people. And of course, thank you to everyone who watched and liked and commented and supported my Star Wars prequel video. It is exceeding my expectations, and a vast majority of the comments have been absolutely wonderful. I've not been able to interact with every single one of them because there are so many, and it's just a little bit overwhelming, but mostly from what I've seen, really, really nice stuff, so I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for that. I got some much more really interesting stuff coming, so I got a lot of stuff on the docket, a lot of stuff that I'm planning and already working on right now. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you soon.